welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it's a good place, not a bad place posing as a good place. Haha, at least we don't think so. My name is Kylie and I love TV. What you want? My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website. CouchPotatoesUnite.wordpress.com is you're bound to find some common ground for something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and via Google Play to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., New Girl, The Vampire Diaries, The Originals, Orange is the New Black, The X-Files, Supernatural, Gotham, Once Upon a Time, and the DC Television Universe or Arrowverse on the CW. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for The 100, Doctor Who, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, American Horror Story, Fuller House, How to Get Away with Murder, a series of unfortunate events, and the Marvel's Defenders panel will talk Season 2 of Jessica Jones. A final visit with our Broadchurch panel to say goodbye to the mystery drama from across the pond. I swear it's coming. I swear it. I've been talking about it for a year.
We're in scheduling, we promise.
We promise. We'll be launching new panels covering Sense8, Grace and Frankie, iZombie, The Crown, Schitt's Creek, and Will and Grace. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll be looking back at one of our most popularly requested panels of all time, otherwise known as Friends, as well as a one-and-gone series called Battle Creek. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from the Bunker, comedy outlet Mondays at Dog Story Theater, and Grand Rapids Comic-Con, and we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff. So make sure you like us or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, and or our Pinterest at CPU Podcast, or subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Play. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. In fact, we forking love it. Today, we're around the water cooler and taking a first look at the first two seasons of a heady philosophical comedy with a decisively cult following called The Good Place. Season 1 aired from September 19, 2016 to January 19, 2017, while Season 2 aired from September 20, 2017 to February 1st, 2018 on NBC. The Good Place focuses on Eleanor Shellstrap, played by Kristen Bell, a woman who wakes up in the afterlife and is introduced by Michael, played by Ted Danson, to, quote, The Good Place, a heaven-like utopia he designed in reward for her righteous life. She realizes that she was sent there by mistake, but decides to hide her morally imperfect behavior and to try to become a better person. William Jackson Harper, Jamila Jamil, and Manny Jacinto co-star as other residents of The Good Place, while Darcy Carden plays Janet, an artificial being helping the inhabitants. Each episode features flashbacks from one of the main characters and ends with a cliffhanger leading into the following episode. The Good Place has received positive reviews since its premiere, with many praising its performances, writing, originality, setting, and tone, as well as its first season finale's twist ending. Plus, on November 21st, 2017, NBC renewed the series for a 13-episode third season. Yay! Yay! The Good Place is easily one of the most popular TV selections ever covered on the CPU podcast, as several people jumped up to volunteer to chat about this acclaimed serial comedy. The 7 you hear on the panel today include 4 frequent panelists, 2 brand new panelists, and 1 very involved moderator, but all are itching to settle in with some frozen yogurt and dissect what is quite possibly one of the most intelligent comedies to grace the network airwaves in years. Thus, as always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of all available seasons of The Good Place to date, and may discuss sensitive plot points which actually exist in this unusual half-hour comedy. So for those of you who have not watched any of The Good Place and plan to do so at some point, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. At this time, I'd like to introduce our brand new Good Place panel. Like I said, some voices you've heard before, some voices, if you've been following our podcast, are brand new to you. So, what I'd like you all to do, panel, is to identify yourself by your first name, how you came to watch The Good Place, what made you start watching, how'd you find out about it, what kept you watching, and then of course you have to rate your interest in the show following season 2 with the CPU's standard character question that changes with each show we do. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready. They are ready too. So how would you rate your interest in The Good Place? Do you love it? You believe that you're programmed to exhibit some kind of affection for it, though you don't necessarily feel this affection because you're not real, or a girl, or anything human. You were just told to say you love it. Or maybe after repeatedly watching it over and over and over, you've realized that the act of watching it has made you smarter, better, and more human. And that you really might love it in a genuine human way after all, like Janet. Do you find it to be a true breath of fresh air in an otherwise lifeless TV landscape, not unlike yourself, though you wish you better understood what you were watching, like Tahani Al-Jamil? You love Janet. She's nice. And DJing. And your friends, especially Pillboy. And flying under the radar. And Molotov cocktails. And various junk foods. And Madden football. And J-Town, and what were we talking about again? Like John Yu Lee, aka Jason Mendoza. There are parts of it you like, and parts of it, including possible characters that you don't like, but you're committed to seeing the show improve itself somehow, if possible, and you'll fork and do whatever you can to stay engaged because it's the right thing to do, probably, like Eleanor Shellstrop. You can't decide how or if you like it. I mean, you really can't decide about the show or anything else ever. You've been debating the merits of this show about philosophy, which may even address or reference some of your personal heroes for the better part of weeks, and you still really haven't landed on an opinion of your own, like Chidi Anagonye, or you don't like it much. Oh, sure, you want to like it. You might have even had a hand in making it. Still, it didn't turn out to be what you expected, and some of it is personally quite annoying to you, but you'll persevere because you find small ways to relate to it in spite of yourself, which leads you to realize that you could never truly hate it in the end. Like Michael, who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay. She's very eager.
I'm so excited. I'm Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Okay, so what made me start watching? I saw the ads on NBC before this premiered, and it had Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, and I love anything with Kristen Bell because she's a Kristen, and I'm going to love anything she's in anyway. And so I knew that I had to watch it immediately because I love her. And I just kept watching because it's absolutely hysterical. So obviously, with that in mind, I'm a Janet, hands down. I love it. I love it in every sense of the word. But also, I'm a little bit of a Tahani because it's also a true breath of fresh air compared to what else is on television right now. Yeah, it's unique and I love it and it's hysterical. And so Janet Tahani, I love it.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, welcome back, Kristen. If
Thank
you've listened to CPU, you've heard Kristen's voice, chances are.
Yeah, I'm around a lot.
She is.
Well, hi, I'm Michael.
Hi, Michael.
But not the Michael.
Not the Michael.
No.
Not the same guy.
No, yes.
Okay.
I mean, Ted Danson's amazing, but I pale in comparison to his acting ability. But
Aww.
I first saw... Okay, never mind. I heard about the show. It was advertised on, like the fall preview, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting premise. And of course, like Kristen, I was very much intrigued by the fact that Ted Danson and Kristen Bell were in it. I think that's a really good combination.
Comedy duo.
Yeah,
It's
so great. And so I was intrigued by it, but life happened and I never actually watched it. And then what happened was, and this is, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, your listeners are probably going to be like, what? So I watched an episode in January because I was like, oh, I'm flipping through the channels, I'll see what's on, and it came up. I was like, oh, I've been wanting to watch this show. So I watched it. It turned out to be the season finale. Oh. So I watched the entire first season knowing the twist. Oh. But, Kristen, wow. I think it enhanced my pleasure of the series.
Wow, that's
because
oh God! I don't know if that's possible. The twist is the twist. Oh, okay.
I knew that was going to be a point of contention. But anyway, so I watched the first season in streaming, knowing the twist. I loved the series, even though I knew what was going to happen. I think it enhanced my pleasure of watching it. And then I kept watching. So who am I? I'm very much like Tahani. I think that it is a breath of fresh air. There's nothing like it on TV. And I do wish I better understood it because I want to understand the moral philosophy and all of the moral quandaries of it because it doesn't really get into it that much, but I want to know more about it. So I'm definitely, I don't have the British accent like Tahani, but I'm definitely like her in viewing the show.
All right. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you.
If you've listened to many of our Looking Back podcasts, that's Michael's bread and butter around
Pretty
here.
much,
Though
yeah.
he's also on the Stranger Things panel because he likes to mix it up.
And I have thoughts, but that's another podcast.
That's another podcast and a panel which you're already on.
I'm Gabe, I'm new.
Hi, Gabe. You're new.
For like watching the show, actually, I was just looking through stuff on Netflix and found it, and I thought, give it a try, and instantly started watching it. Pretty much binged the whole first season in a night. And then, who am I most like, I'd say? Probably Eleanor. I had no expectations, went into the show completely blind, started watching it, enjoy it, and then there's some points that I think are okay, but can't wait to keep watching the show after season 2.
Okay. Well, welcome to CPU, Gabe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Joey.
Hi, Joey.
Hi.
Hi.
I started watching the show because Gabe was watching
Funny how that works.
it. And full disclaimer, I started watching like episode
3 or
4.
4, yeah. One.
Still haven't seen the first few episodes.
You're like almost like Michael.
Except I didn't see the twist first. So. And to be honest, the twist at the end was what made me start recommending it to people. Because otherwise, I mean, it's a great show, and it was really easy to watch. But that was the like selling point for me to tell other people to watch it. Probably a little like Janet, where I really love it, and a little bit like Eleanor, where there's, especially as we got further into the other season, there were parts where I was like, but we're talking about season 1, so I
We're
am
actually
Janet.
talking about both today.
Oh, like in the same.
Yeah.
Oh. Well then, yeah. There you go. My original answer.
Well, welcome, Joey. Now, technically to the listener, Joey is new. Joey actually recorded one with us that got lost in our much ballyhooed equipment failure, but you will hear his voice again when we re-record that sad loss, which is Sense8, which I've advertised if you like Sense8. So welcome, Joey, but welcome back too.
Hi, I'm Selene.
Hi, Selene.
I started watching this show because Kristen Bell is in it, and I am forever in love with Kristen Bell. In fact, there is, not only is she also a woman from Michigan, she loves cheese, admittedly. Loves it.
2 important
So true.
factors.
There is a saying in my life that you can't go wrong when you have a woman from Michigan who loves cheese.
There you go.
I have stood by that for 12 years.
I don't even know what to say.
I love it so much. I do. I love it so much.
Unlike Michael and Kristen, I did not know who the other guy was.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, we're old. Selena's much younger.
Sorry, not sorry.
That's sad.
Just for the record, I don't think Gabe and
Yeah, I didn't know who it was either, actually,
So that one scene in the final episode of season 2 did not land on you,
Apparently
okay?
Oh, okay, so we got it.
Yeah,
We got
uh-huh.
it.
Inform
feel
us
like-
of
yeah,
it
well,
later.
yeah,
What are you
I feel like there's
We'll get to it.
Get to
video
it.
locked right now.
Oh!
So Michael and I were the only 2 that got it. And Kelsey. Kylie, not Kelsey.
Yeah, it just landed for Kelsey.
That's a really good segue for me. Alright, well, will you finish? Kristen Bell was the hook, line, and sinker for me. And I am 100% a Janet. I just love this show. I mean, I guess I can agree with everyone else that, like Tahani, I think it's a breath of fresh air, but that's not what brought me in. It's just a fact of life.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that's necessarily pertinent to me, it's just there.
All right, welcome back, Selene. Let's see, Selene has been on a couple of Looking Backs, Agent Carter, Person of Interest. She's on our 100 panel, but that's going to die, and you'll hear that soon.
Sorry.
And what else? I don't know. I think I covered all of them, right?
I don't even know anymore.
All right, good job.
Hey, I'm Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
Hey, I started watching the show, I don't remember. I saw the previews and was like so excited because I also love Kristen Bell very, very much. And I love the whole premise of her not being able to swear. It's my favorite thing. It never got old for me, ever. That was like what caught me and made me want to watch it. What kept me watching was that the writing is so witty and clever and funny, and there's such colorful characters that they've put together, and it just makes me happy. So that being said, I would rate my interest in the show as Janet, but also a little bit Jason Mendoza, which is why that was a great segue for me. Because I love Janet, I think she's amazing, and also I love my friends and Molotov cocktails and so
Kelsey blows things up.
I really like explosions. It's good.
You just don't like starting them, right?
Well, she
Yeah.
loves Molotov cocktails, and she also loves starting them.
Nope, it's fine.
Well, welcome back, Kelsey. Kelsey is, of course, on our Supernatural panel, which is ongoing. She's on a few of our Vampire Diaries that ended.
Which is done.
Which is done. Series of unfortunate events her and Selene are on.
Oh yeah.
P.S. Dynamics, do you want to establish?
Oh yeah, we're engaged.
Yeah.
Yay.
So in case they fight with each other, now you know.
Also, Joey is my brother.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
true.
we
Hi.
should also.
It's
I'm
a
also
family
there.
It's a
affair.
family thing.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. And of course, my name is Kylie. I've mentioned that I'll be participating as well as moderating today, of course. And I started watching The Good Place for a couple of reasons. First off, if you know me, or you follow the blog, or you follow this podcast, or you just generally know that I'm addicted to TV, you know that I look to see what's coming out. And I did see that The Good Place was coming out. I had watched a trailer or a teaser for it, and I thought it was the most hilarious 2 minutes I'd seen in a while. But because I do this podcast, I didn't watch it right away. I don't have time. I'm always watching TV. So along the way, my good friend Kristen over here, who's also on all the CPU panels, was like, have you watched The Good Place yet? Have you watched The Good Place yet?
I kept bugging her.
Yes. Because basically she knows, and also because it's a really, really, really smart show. And as I started to watch it, I kept watching it because it's a really, really, really smart, funny, good show. And it is a breath of fresh air. So segueing into that piece, I would be Janet also. I also love Janet. Maybe not the same way Kelsey loves Janet, but I love Janet. And also, I think I would add Tahani to myself as well, although some of the things they talk about, I do know, I did actually have a philosophy course in college, so I read some of these things. They didn't land for me at the time, and I never took a philosophy course again, but it was really nice to like revisit that, so some of it's kind of landing for me a little bit, but some of it's pretty heady, and I actually think this is the kind of TV show that you could watch it over and over and find something new each time you watch it. So welcome to everybody. Now we've gone through how we got there and how we like it. Now we have to do the standard CPU rating scale. This rating scale doesn't change with each show we do. It's based on stars, and it's really simple. I'm going to have you go around the water cooler. That's what we're at right now, a water cooler. I'm going to have you go around the water cooler and tell us how many stars you would rate this show. You can do halves if you want. I'm not that fussy. Some other people that shall remain nameless and are not on this panel do fractions that are really hard to do math with, but that's fine. So how would you rate The Good Place overall? Is it 5 stars? You have to watch everything. Holy smokes, it's the greatest comedy you've ever seen in your entire life. You could just die. 5 stars. Is it 4 stars? It certainly seems intriguing. You're going to keep watching, but you see possible pitfalls in the premise. Is it 3 stars? You're going to give it one more try. There are things you like, things you don't. You want to see which things are allowed to flourish, but you're not really super sold. Is it 2 stars? You've only watched part of the show. Chances are you're kind of bored. There's some intrigue or fascination that holds it together for you. no matter how unlikely, but you're really struggling to keep watching? Or is it 1 star? Pass on this one, guys. It's a snoozer. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It's not your cup of tea. It's way too, like, I don't know. It's just too over your head. You're too much of a Jason here. There's too many options to waste time on this one. 1 star. Who would like to start the stars?
I would like to start with a 5.
Okay.
I would like to start with a 4 and 5/8.
So,
Oh.
so Selene, like, justify your 5.
I'm a Janet. I love the show 100%, and it's just everything we've already kind of said. Like, it's smart, it's hilarious, it's the characters, you love them all so much. Like, even when you're annoyed with the character, you still love them. Like Tahani, it's just like, oh, you're so close to being so there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually wanting to be better, but you're not. But you still love her, and even Michael and Jason. And I love Jason. He's such a dummy, and I love him.
That's why we love him.
Exactly. And the characters are great. The writing is great. Even like in the second season where there were parts where I was like, this is what's going to happen next. I wasn't mad when it happened. Like, I wanted that to happen, and I was so glad when it did. And the things that surprise me and come out of left field make me very happy. And I just literally we finished binge watching season 2 last night. Anyone whatsoever, so I finished watching it, and I was just like, I love this show so much. It makes me so happy.
So back to my 4 and 5/8, because I can. I really love it. I think it's amazing. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit of a cheaty. I don't know if I want to say that it's the best comedy I've ever seen, but it probably is, because I can't think of another one that's better. But I also feel like there were a couple moments where I was like, okay, I guess that's cool. And then they do something amazing, and they'd be like, all right, that's fine then. So I'm interested to see where season 3 goes, but I love it right now.
I'd give it a solid 4.5 stars, which isn't solid.
No, it's solid.
I wasn't
It's more
gonna
solid
say.
than 5/8.
It's more solid than 4 and 5/8.
I really like it. I really enjoy the show. Every time I've watched it, I've binged it. But I'm a little bit skeptical about where it's going to keep going. I think there's total validity for a season 3, but not much after that. But I guess we'll see where the writing goes with it. Not there with all the characters. There's a couple characters that I'll talk about later that they're there and they have a role, but I'm not like, yeah, you're awesome to watch. But most of them I enjoy, and I still binge the show. I still love it.
Yeah.
So that's where the 4.5 comes from.
No, I'd say I'm 4.5 as well. I like a lot of the characters. I think they're really funny. There's a few characters I could go without, and then the story's just great. I love watching the characters develop and everything happen to them around them. And just, it's so fun to watch.
Can I average that out to 4.25?
That's fine with me.
All right.
I would rate it higher than a 5 if I could.
Nice.
But you can't.
But I can't. So I'm gonna give it a solid 5.
Okay.
I have rewatched this show multiple times, season 1 and season 2. It has immense rewatchability. I mean, Michael can attest to that since he started at the end of season 1.
She's just happy because she's been ragged on for like a long time for doing something similar.
But it's a good thing.
It's a
in
good
this
thing.
case, you know,
Yes.
you found the twist and you wanted to keep watching it, and that's
Yeah.
huge for a network comedy. And it's a network comedy. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever rated a network comedy a 5. I mean, I love Friends, but I wouldn't rate Friends a 5. And I love this one. I think it's open to a lot of different people. Like, anybody can watch it. I love this show. I think they have a ton of potential, and I can see great things ahead for season 3 because they did a great job with season 2, especially after the twist. And I think with the creators of the show, I believe that they will end the show on their terms. I don't think they're just going to let it go off into oblivion. They're going to tell their story and they'll end it while it's still on top. I don't see them dragging it out. So I give it a 5, solid 5.
I wonder how many people just gasped at you saying you wouldn't give Friends a 5.
My
wouldn't
heart
either,
innerly gasped.
I love Friends, I do, and you'll hear me on that panel later whenever we record it. But
Yes, that's
but
coming
yeah,
up.
but the good place, solid 5.
Okay.
You know, based on the curve that we have going on here, I'm going to change my rating that I was originally giving it before I got here. It's going to be a solid 5. I was originally going to say 4.5, because I wasn't sure this show could sustain a long-term, network slate that usually happens on a network comedy, like 6, 7, 8, 25 seasons or whatever. And so,
25.
but now, I don't know, just based on what everyone's saying and the curve we seem to be having here, I would rate it higher than what everyone is at, 4.5 or so. So I would say 5. Yeah, it's just an all-around good show. I laugh hysterically and genuinely when everything happens, and I was genuinely surprised at many things that were happening, and it's very similar to one of the shows that was its huge inspiration that Michael Schur has said was an inspiration, Lost, which I loved. So I was like, well, if I love Lost, I would love this show, and it's true.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he said I think he talked to Damon Lindelof for some advice on how to structure the series.
Huh.
I'm not sure about that, but I know he definitely took inspiration from Lost.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't see Lost, and I don't know who any of those people are.
I've seen all Lost.
Michael, I got you.
Thank
I
you.
understand.
There's some solid pillars on this panel.
Self-awareness is good. I would actually, despite all of my effusive praise, I would actually stay at 4.5 stars myself. There's a lot to love about it. One of the things that I would echo is that I don't know about, these 2 seasons were mapped out so well that they're going to have to either stay on that level or one-up themselves every time there's a new season.
Yeah.
And while I'm confident that we have a smart writer and Michael Schur, I'm also not as confident just because the topic that they're exploring, I can see them going down a rabbit hole and getting, quote, lost. How's that? The other thing I would say is that the show, to me, is hysterical, but never in a laugh out loud way. It's one of those things that I have to kind of think about. And then I'm laughing 2 hours later at things I should have been laughing at when I was watching it.
True, okay.
So there are characters that I like better than other characters. For some reason, I relate a lot to Chidi, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the Gemini in me.
Maybe it's exactly what you just said.
Perhaps.
It's a very cheaty thing to say.
Oh, well, there you go. So there's just a little trepidation to give it a 5. Nevertheless, though, just my instant emotional and intellectual reaction to the show is that I love it. So that half-star markdown is not meant to be a criticism by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, I don't know if I'm at holy smokes. Though I do agree with Kristen's comment that this is unlike anything we've seen on network TV in a really, really, really long time. So, having said all of that, now we're going to talk about season 1. And of course, I've sent out these talking points. You don't have to hit on all of them. Season 1 is when they show up in the so-called good place for the very first time. There's lots of frozen yogurt. There's lots of things they're trying to get accustomed to. What did you think of that season? What did you like? What didn't you like? Did you like the show right away? Where were you on that season?
First of all, air high five that you relate to Chidi, so true, thank you. Okay, I might want to start because, yes, I did know the twist going into watching this season. And I feel like knowing that twist, I was able to watch it and see the clues that were in. I could see the structure of the entire season as a whole and see how they crafted it so that it was there from the very beginning. You could see Ted Danson playing both sides of Michael's character, literally from the very first episode. I can't remember the exact moment in that first episode where he kind of lets on just ever so slightly that he's not who he says he is, but it's there from the very beginning, and I feel like I was able to appreciate that, and it made me love the series more by being able to look at it from that prism. And I think the twist really informs what's going on in that first season, even if you're watching it from the very beginning and not knowing what's happening, I think it has obvious merits. But from my perspective, it just really was like, oh, okay, so there's that clue that you know something's not quite right. I feel like there's even a line that Chidi has in the very first episode. I think it's when he says, oh my goodness, I have a stomach ache. And it's just like, wait, there it is, right there. There's the first clue, and it's so expertly crafted. So as a whole, I think that knowing that twist really made me appreciate it.
So Michael, we say there are major spoilers. Why don't you set up the twist?
Sure. Well, the big twist is that it's not the good place. What?
Surprise, you idiot!
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and Eleanor's the one that figures it out. She knows that they're all there to torture each other, and she figures it out to a T. And then there's that brilliant laugh that Ted Danson has immediately afterwards, where he giggles evilly, and it's like the best thing. He should have won the Emmy just for that. Like, seriously. And it's just like such a great twist because it makes sense narratively, and yet you don't. If you see it from the very beginning, you might not see it coming. Because it's still an intriguing premise without that twist. A person that's in heaven who shouldn't be there and what she has to do to be better.
I felt like watching it leading up to the twist, I felt like I figured it out right as Eleanor figured it out. Things were off, and it was like the second I was like, maybe this isn't the good place, she was like, this isn't the good place. I was like, oh snap, we're on the same wavelength.
I was on the same page as you, Joey. I felt the same thing. Like, I thought, oh, they're in a good place, but this is really funny because she's not supposed to be here. Ha ha ha, isn't this cute? Holy forking shirt ball. Like,
her exact words.
Yeah, no, I was on the same page. And I think that was probably their intention, like, for the audience to figure it out right than she did.
Yeah.
But, like, little side note here, it's really cute. They didn't tell the cast that this was happening. They only told Kristen Bell and Ted Danson were the only two that knew. Mm-hmm. So Janet, Tahani, Jason, and Chidi had no idea that was the twist. And they didn't find out until at the table read. Like, they weren't allowed to read ahead. Like, they actually, somebody on the production staff filmed them finding out the twist. So if you can find that video, it's out on YouTube, and I think it's even on like the Good Place website or something. It's very funny to watch their reactions because they had no idea through filming the whole first season.
That's awesome.
You know, the cast didn't even know, and that's really cool. So their reactions were almost genuine, which is kind of neat.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For at least going back to the twist, for me what happened while I was watching is I watched probably the first few episodes, then I left to like go to work or something, and Joey kept watching. So Joey saw the end before I did, and I come back, he's like, you have to finish it, you have to watch, you have to see what the twist is. Which instantly got me interested, so I kept watching it as I was planning to anyways. When you figure out that it's the bad place, that was incredible. I wasn't ready for it. You tell Eleanor said it. I was like, that's crazy, that totally is what's happening. And no, season 1 was great. I loved when they couldn't swear. When you first find that out, that was hysterical.
I don't remember my reaction to the twist. I mean, obviously I was floored, but I just don't remember if I figured it out before it happened or not.
I think we both figured it out like right when she did.
Might have been.
I think so. It's hard to remember.
I don't know, it was a while ago.
No.
I'll admit I didn't see the twist coming. I had no idea. I was mostly just so I watched the first season probably in a day, I'm not gonna lie. And I was just so enamored with the premise and everything that was kind of the environment of the Good Place. I loved reading all the signs on the businesses.
Oh yeah, inside
all the
jokes.
little puns.
Yes, I love the fact of all the little mechanisms, the things that Janet randomly has in her void. The fact that there's
Janet.
Yeah, right.
I love
the fact that there's a kill switch somewhere over on the beach that you can reboot her with.
I know she begs for her life.
Awful and hilarious at the same time.
And she warns people, I'm gonna do this. It's just a fail-safe mechanism. And then they do it, and she's like, no. And they're like, I'm sorry.
I have Stockholm with 3 kids.
My favorite is one where she tells Michael, I'm pregnant and it's yours.
So there's
That actress is amazing.
She's my favorite.
And I know
She's relatively new too.
and
A lot of them
she looks so familiar. I went to IMDb, I'm like, where have I seen this chick? But she hasn't really been in a lot. So I don't know. But I was just really because I was so taken in by everything that was happening and all the talk about philosophy and all the different things, it didn't even land. Even when Eleanor says, "This is the bad place," I was like, "No." And then Michael did his laugh. And I was like, "Well, okay." So it worked on me. Or not.
All of the characters. I think the core 6 characters are just such... I mean, it's funny that the meta story is that, that Michael, the demon, chose those 4 people to be the absolute perfect torture mechanism for each other because of their personalities. But again, that's kind of a meta-narrative because the writers chose these 6 people, including Michael and Janet, to be like absolute perfect puzzle that fits together of people. It's like perfect writing to have those 6 people bounce ideas off each other and bounce things and storylines off of each other. It's very well constructed, but they're real characters. And I just think that's really... I feel for them. I feel for Chidi and his indecisiveness. I've had that. I feel for Tahani and the fact that she tries to one-up her sister in order to make her parents proud of her, and yet nothing is enough. And I feel for Eleanor, who's had a really awful childhood, and yet it's just like, fork it, I'm going to be the person I want to be. And yeah, I think it's funny that they can't swear, and we're doing a podcast, and it's a family podcast, and we can use the euphemisms on this show. Also, I relate to that because I've done euphemisms in my life where I used to be, I would try and avoid swearing, and I came up with the euphemism of shoobadoo.
Yes, you did.
Yes. And oh god, I got Kylie on that.
She's broken.
I'm fine.
I even relate to
Everything
Jason
is
too.
fine. You relate to Jason?
Sure, it's just
I
like
relate
You're just there. You're just in the midst of all
Right.
these people making important decisions.
You're like, I should be making this decision myself, but I'm only 20% here.
Would you be offended if I said Chidi kind of reminded me of you at
no,
times?
I saw it 125%. Yeah,
We're all friends here.
yeah. That's why I relate to him so much.
What else did you think about the characters? Are there any parts of season 1 that you didn't like?
I'm curious.
But I absolutely love the fact that Ben Wyatt was.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, please. Dude.
Oh yeah.
And Bad Janet.
Adam Scott.
I'm so sad that he wasn't in the second season. I just remembered that he was in that.
Yeah, he's not in it for very long. Like only 2 or 3 episodes
It
or
was
something
a
like
cute
that.
little
Yeah.
guest
It was,
spot.
it
It
was.
really needed it.
That's because he's
But-
doing Ghosted.
That's true. Yes.
Was
But
that
we
show?
got Maya Rudolph in season 2.
Yes, we did.
So
And we got Dak
That was
Shepard.
brilliant.
Oh my god.
The Dak Shepard
Stay on
cameo.
season 4.
I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about that. Okay, anyway. No, yeah, I loved season. I don't think there was anything I didn't like in season 1. I felt like I think at first I didn't like the twist. Like I liked it, but I didn't because I was like, but I was having so much fun with the whole first premise. I wasn't ready for a new premise yet.
It's only what 10 episodes? In the first 13.
Oh my
It
gosh,
doesn't
the
seem
medium
like it.
place.
Let's talk about the medium. Which Eleanor advocates should exist. And then finds out it does.
There's one person in it.
And her name is Mindy St. Clair, and she was a lawyer in the 80s, and she did a lot of cocaine, and she had a lot of sex, and she wouldn't have gone to the good place except she created a charity, right? Or actually funded a charity right before she died.
created the idea of a charity, which once she
Well,
died,
that's
So
even
it's
worse.
found
and then created it.
Right.
Because she was so high on cocaine, she couldn't function.
There you
Oh,
go.
there it is.
On that note, though, I have to briefly depart and go back to the founder of, or the human that was the closest to discovering what the good place
Oh my
was
God.
that stoner.
Oh,
That was my
yes,
favorite. I laughed so hard.
And his pictures up in the wall.
I want to know if that's true or if that was just Michael like,
Just
messing
creating
around.
something.
Yeah. Like
That picture's in there all of season
Yeah.
2 because they spend a lot more time in his office and you
They
see
did.
it, and I'm
Yeah.
always like, oh yeah, that's the guy that totally knows what the good place is. No one remembers him.
In season 1, throughout the whole series, but season 1 in particular, I obviously really loved the show. The characters that I was just kind of
I was gonna ask about
was
that. Yeah.
Tahini and Cheap. I know. So
Well, tahini,
Tahani.
I understand.
Tahani.
I always want to call her
Tahini food.
tahini too.
I typed tahini into talking points at least 20 times, and I'm like, no, I want Mediterranean.
Let's go get Europe.
So
Yes, let's do it.
So with Tahani, both of them, I fully understood their points in it, and I appreciated a lot of times with them. But there was so many times where it was just like, shut up. Move on
They
to
were
another
dragging on with
character.
those two characters a lot. And
Especially with Chidi, I got so annoyed with Chidi so many times, which you're supposed to, I think.
That's why he's there.
That's why he's there, and that's why he's not in the good place.
Right.
Is because he can't make a decision. And sometimes it was funny, but sometimes it was like that joke that was dragging on way too long. And with Tahani, it was just, Like she was there, she represented a group of people that I get, that I understand.
she represented a group of people that I'm not a part of.
That's basically what he said.
It was just, I understand their points in being there, and there were definitely times in the show when I appreciated them being there, but there was times when I wanted them to move on from those characters to back to the other characters that I like. I really like Jason, though he doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But he is very entertaining in my opinion.
For me, at least, I'm more of an Eleanor. I think she's hilarious. Every time she's on the screen, I'm laughing, it feels like. And then I would actually say Justin's probably my least favorite character out of all of them. He's funny, but they just played I'm the dumb guy a lot sometimes. And it was good, but it got repetitive. I liked it still, though.
Yeah, I do feel like he sometimes gets very one note.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm
all the
waiting.
stuff he says is so funny and random
It is.
that I'm
No,
still like, Selene and I were on Tumblr. Well, Selene was on Tumblr.
Celine's always on Tumblr.
Celine's always on Tumblr. And we saw a post that was about
Manny, what is his name? Manny Jacinto?
Yes.
Yep.
He was talking about the fact that he really likes being able to represent a character that's not the stereotype for an Asian man. That he gets to not be incredibly smart and that he's not a martial artist. And that the fact that
He's not a monk.
He's not a silent Buddhist monk that's not supposed to talk.
and he likes being able to represent the other, everything else that people can be that aren't a stereotype.
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
I'm waiting for his character to get a redemption of some sort. I think it's coming. I don't know where it's coming, but I feel like
Pretty sure
it
the
happened.
Molotov.
Yeah, I'm
That-
I think
that's
season 2.
part of it.
I think
That's
that's
part of
happened
it.
right there.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't stop laughing.
I was dying. It was so great.
But anyways,
Season
one.
one.
Yeah.
And I love that when we find out how all of them died too. That's
Oh, it's season
Oh,
1.
yeah.
That
He
was
locked
cool.
himself.
So how did Kelsey? Can you set up how they all died?
I don't know if I
All
remember.
of them?
Well, okay, so Jason locked himself in that safe,
Yeah.
Trying
They
to
were trying to rob
trying to rob.
like it was like just a McDonald's. It's not
No,
McDonald's,
it
but
was like a fast food
it's
chain.
just
Very
sort of
small
fast
time
food.
crime, petty
Yeah.
crime.
He locked himself in the safe and he suffocated.
Pillboy, right?
For gross stupidity.
Eleanor dropped the bottle of
Margarita mix.
margarita mix, and then a giant row of carts hit her.
And
Shopping
dragged
carts
her
on the
and pushed
loose.
her and pushed her to traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing. You don't really find that out until like the last episode of season 2. But anyway.
No, they
No, they
don't.
tell- they talk
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sheedy had
Never
an
mind.
air conditioner fall on his head
Yeah.
because he couldn't decide where he wanted to go, and so he was standing there, and the air conditioner from like 2 or 3 stories up fell on his
I didn't
head.
even
And then
remember
my
at all.
favorite is Tahani, who died crashing her sister's
Oh,
her
yeah,
statue.
she
Yeah.
pulled out her
like a
A
statuette,
comeback
like,
party.
Grammy party or something. Yeah, like she got nominated for this big award and she crashed it and then tried to tear down this statue of her sister and it fell on her. It's my favorite.
Very good. Very good. So we talk about Jason. Now he had this whole romantic relationship with the artificial life form known as Janet. Talk about that.
Because she was nice to him.
Right.
She was the only person who was nice to him, and he decided that he loved her.
I'm
And they
100%,
needed to get married.
I'm 100% here for it. I think that's a great relationship.
I think it's really funny.
It's a relationship that I think it's the only kind of relationship that he can truly have that
Yeah.
won't eventually end up hurting him,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I think that's true.
No, that's all season 1 pretty much. Like halfway, they start being in a relationship together, and then they get married like an episode or two later.
Yep.
Oh no, that's really funny. And Michael's all against it at first too. He's like, no, you can't marry Jason. That's not okay.
Well, and Jason shows up to the wedding and he has the sleeveless tie.
Yes.
Because he's a dude, bro. And it's
I do have to, so we were talking about some of the characters that maybe we didn't relate to as much. I will say, even though I liked all of the characters, the scenes that I probably enjoyed the most were the ones where they got away from their own archetypes for a while and were really just having conversation
Sure.
and trying to work out what the solves were, because there were some things that did kind of play out ad nauseum, for example, especially in the next season. It wasn't as not fresh in the first season because you were still getting used to it, but by the second season it was like, okay, so that joke's been told, you know. Is there anything else you want to say about, what about Bad Janet? We should cover Bad
Janet. Amazing.
one more reason I love that actress. They give her so much to do. Not only did she have 2 iterations of Janet, but then she got to play Bad Janet. Like, how awesome is that?
Bad
Later
Janet,
on,
good Janet
she
as
gets to
Bad
play
Janet.
good Janet playing
Yeah.
Bad Janet.
Which
Which so reminded me of Castiel from Supernatural.
I love how she comes.
Which is another panel that we already have.
I love how she
Which
comes
that
into
I'm
being
not.
when she pops out of the ether. She's like, "What up? Whatever." And then she's on her phone, and she's constantly on her phone, and it's just so hilarious.
It was such a fitting assistant to the Bad Place.
Right.
That is exactly how I would picture it.
I also love all of the reasons, and is it the first episode or something that he gives for people going to the Bad Place? Like vanity plates.
No, it was when he was testing her to see if she belonged in the
Oh,
Bad Place.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
yeah.
episode 11 or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Watching The Bachelor. The reasons.
I
It was
concur.
hilarious.
Or listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No, I
No,
don't
it was
agree
going
with
to a Red
that.
Hot Chili Peppers concert.
It was, yeah, just going to the concert, yeah.
I don't agree with it either, but apparently I'm going to the Bad Place.
Well, Joey,
Oh,
we
we
had
could
a
talk about
conversation
that.
Yeah, let's talk about the calculus. Oh, well, go ahead, Gabe.
Joey and I were talking about who's in the good place then, because we hear about all these people that are in the bad place, like all these famous writers and poets and singers and composers. So who's in the good place then? Like actually in the good place, now that we know
That would be interesting.
Twist.
That would be
Yeah.
interesting.
That might be a future season.
It might
You
be.
never know.
I hope so.
So let's talk about, you want to talk about the calculation, don't you?
I have 2 big things I want to talk about, but calculation definitely yes.
Well, then go.
Okay, okay, so I think it's part of the breath of fresh air of this show is that it clearly has a very definite moral standpoint about moral philosophy and ethics. And it's very clear that the show itself thinks that the calculations for who gets into the good place is highly flawed. And I love that. And I love the fact that the moral center of the show seems to be Eleanor and her view that, wait a minute, I did bad things. I was horrible. However, I was not nearly as horrible as hundreds of thousands of other people. And I don't necessarily, she genuinely believes she does not belong in the bad place. And I feel like the show agrees with her. And I love that. I love the fact that that's going to be it seems to me, I don't know if anyone agrees, but that seems to be the overall journey of the show, is that how it's going to be that philosophy, that moral philosophy wins out in the end. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I don't know.
What I find really interesting is the fact that they constantly, and whether or not Michael is being 100% truthful on whether all the philosophers are actually
Exactly,
in the
yeah.
bad place or not, but the idea that they're using moral philosophy to try and make themselves better, but all the philosophers themselves are in the bad place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
is that
that's so
even really
weird.
the way to do it?
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, and I like that. I mean, it's in season 2, but it all has to do with this. When they're standing on the scale that judges them, the slightest thing can change them from being
Worthy.
The best
worthy
version
to
of
being
themselves.
not worthy.
Well,
Yeah.
and what's interesting about that scale is I believe that they have to believe that they are the best version of themselves. I don't even think it actually matters if they are or not. They just have to believe.
Yeah, I don't think it actually had anything to do with the
Well, and
actual
also,
point
was it
system.
actually accurate? Because then it wasn't even...
It was a
wasn't
stalling
real.
mechanism.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it wasn't even...
Michael just made it. Was like, I
Transfer.
think it'll work.
But Jason was right. Green, 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 red. Just gotta memorize the pattern. And then Janet breaks it.
Chance of breaks it by stepping on it.
But I have to agree with you, Michael. I think, yes, that's kind of the layers that they're presenting. And even if they're sort of seemingly advocating the moral philosophy point right now, I don't think it's necessarily a marriage. I think it's trying to get the viewer through these little, sort of quirks that come along the way to really question that. Like, is this really the way? As opposed to, this is the way and we think you should believe that. And Eleanor, I do think Eleanor is the moral center of the show. That's one of the reasons why I love this show so much. Because in some ways she is kind of, except for Chidi, I still struggle with how Chidi's indecisiveness, other than that he annoys others, makes him bad.
Right?
Worthy of the bad place. But at the same time, the others, aside from Chidi, are seemingly a lot worse than Eleanor. So in relativity, and we'll kind of get to this in season 2 because there's the test that Judge Jen gives them.
Yes.
But that's kind of what we're looking at. Eleanor is in every person. And I was actually thinking about this concept on the way over here because that's what I do. There's a lot of literature that posits that the seed of bad is buried within humans. And then there's a lot of literature that assumes humanity is good until they're swayed from bad. But the key to Eleanor is that she's selfish. Not that she's good or bad, she's just protective of herself. So where does that fall? Is selfishness bad? Selfishness good? We hear a lot of things about you should be true to yourself, you should take care of yourself first, you should make sure you self-love, but then where does that get to be too far? And that's kind of I think, some of what the show is trying to explore. Just me.
Well, yeah. I love in the first episode that when they're talking about the stoner that figured it all out. And they're like, yeah, every religion was only about, what, like
5%, right?
Yeah,
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's super low.
Yeah, and I loved that quote, and I have actually quoted that as like a source in arguments sometimes. Because that's kind of how I...
Bibliography.
Not that, I identify as Christian, but I also think that, like, it's vain of any one religion to think that they're the only way that someone is getting to heaven. And I think that that's what the show is basically saying. And I think it's funny that that's why all these philosophers are in hell, because it's like, just because you preach the message doesn't mean you lived it. And I think that that's another subtle commentary that they're making throughout the show.
Also, on that note, I like that they don't call it heaven or hell. That
It's
the
good place.
or
It's bad
the
place.
That's another reason I think it's so accessible to everybody, because I have friends who are like extremely devout Christian and ones that aren't, and across the board all my friends have really liked it. And I think that's kind of neat that they kind of take it that way.
Well, and I mean, most religions have a good place, bad place.
Right.
Concept. So that archetype works really well when it's that open.
Yeah.
So the one thing I really think we should hit on before we transition is the concept of the soulmates.
That's the other thing.
So let's talk about the soulmate construct. What did we think of that?
Should I do my theory?
Do
I have
your
a
theory,
I have a
Michael.
theory. I don't know if anyone wants to talk before my theory comes out because it could be a mind-blowing theory.
Oh.
Wow, Michael, you're building it up a lot.
What if we just tear apart your theory?
There we go. That works.
My theory is that when Eleanor was trying to give Janet advice about getting on with it and moving on and stuff, I just really wanted Eleanor and Janet to hook up.
That's a shipping thing.
It
That's
is,
there.
but
Is it?
But
Well,
the bigger,
and Tahani and
but the
Eleanor
bigger
too.
ship is Tahani and
Yes.
Eleanor, because there are Eleanor has some feelings for Tahani.
Yeah, she does.
Well, I think the show clearly established that Eleanor's bi.
I like
But this is like, you
Full
big,
stop.
tall, beautiful skyscraper.
My favorite is when Janet says says that based on the past few conversations they've had, her Eleanor's ideal soulmate would be Tahani's head on Stone Cold Steve Austin's body. And then she says, or vice versa.
I liked when she was realizing that she had feelings for people, and she was like, I have feelings for Chidi and Jason and Tahani.
That's actually my theory right there. Is
They're
that
all possible soulmates for
each other. Like they are all each other's soulmates. They have to be together for all eternity because they make each other way better than they are individually.
Well, ironically, being each other's torturous devices.
Yeah, which is really cool. But
So Michael really
But
does
even
it.
Michael and Janet too.
Yeah.
Like I think Michael and Janet are in there too. I think the six
It's
of them.
the group.
Yeah.
So we're falling into the idea that there are like soulmate groups.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
And
that
that
Soul
there's like some
clusters.
kind
Soul
of
clusters, yeah.
Sensates, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
then it's a sense six.
then maybe
Weird.
there's this idea of like, what is it, like fatalism, in the sense that maybe it was fate for Michael to design this whole thing to bring them all together. Because how else, if Michael and Janet are part of that equation, how else would those...
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And at least
Holy crap.
for the soulmates, looking at it now, after we're getting into season 2, knowing the bad place, well, the good place is not actually the good place, it's the bad place. Maybe soulmates, and they talk about it in season 2, maybe soulmates aren't a thing.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what I
that's-
was
yeah,
thinking
that's
too.
possible.
Maybe it was a construct of Michael's
Yep.
to
So he
make it to
thinks-
the torturing.
Exactly.
See, I was kind of going along those lines.
Because
Yep.
they kept him closer.
Yep.
Because then when they tried, again, kind of segueing a little into season 2, when we saw all the episodes with the reboots, like all hundreds and thousands of reboots that they did, sometimes they were paired in a weird combination as soulmates. Sometimes they weren't paired together as soulmates to keep them apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It could be a Michael construct, thinking that is what the good place has, and maybe the good place doesn't. Maybe the good place has soul clusters, or maybe it's just everyone's awesome and happy and having dance parties. Who knows?
Or maybe it doesn't even exist.
We haven't
There's
seen the
also-
good place at all, so there's always the possibility.
See, I'm kind of hitching that I do think the soulmate thing is real and Michael's just getting it all wrong.
Oh, like Michael on the show.
Michael on the...
Okay.
Yes, no.
I was like, oh wow, you're really tearing apart.
No! I actually can see that I think your possibility is quite strong, and I actually think they've planted seeds of that, but that's in the next season, so
Yeah.
we'll get to that. So I guess that's a natural segue. Anything else you want to say about season 1
It
before
was
we
good.
move
I
on?
would suggest it.
So good.
Okay.
Watch it.
Oh,
Watch
giant
it.
shrimp.
Yes.
Oh, also in the giant shrimp, they all wore maize and blue,
I
which
was
I got
gonna- yeah, I saw
props to,
that. I
and she
saw
had a
that.
Michigan launcher.
Every
Yeah.
character she plays, she always has something with U of M because that's her alma mater.
Oh,
Because
nice.
it's a great place, and she's awesome, and
Yeah.
yay. Because
That
that's
was
also
not
my alma mater.
But I love that she was crowned best person.
In
And
the
she
second
had to make again, this is second season.
Yeah,
yeah.
Either way, I love that she was best person and she still went after the shrimp and the flying shrimp, the shrimp in the pocket, stealing the shrimp.
The shrimp machine, the shrimp
But-
dispenser.
That
Yeah,
reminded
that
me
was
of my
great.
sister, because my sister has this abnormal love for shrimp.
I love shrimp.
So does my daughter.
Yes.
Going off of the shrimp dispenser,
Yeah.
these are covered in white chocolate. You should not try the mystery flavor.
Still eating it.
No, that was
But-
great.
I had so much fun reading all the flavors.
Yes. But in the first season, going off of the Tahani, finding out that she's the second lowest point scorer in the season and how that just destroyed her.
Which
Yes.
she found through very sneaky methods.
Yeah.
So,
Very true.
and then questioned why she was the second to lowest point scorer. So, all
Which
right.
was clearly a setup, right?
Right.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
it's playing on her inferiority complex.
Yeah, because none of those other people have scores. There's only
They're all
4.
demons.
Yeah, there's only 4 people that have scores in that place. So
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Also, in season 1, however awesome it was, I can't
Ingenious?
think of that word.
Okay.
Of bringing in the fake Eleanor
Yes.
and then
Oh.
trying to tell
Yes,
AKA
we
Nikki.
really should talk about that, because that sets up a gigantic season 2 arc.
because fake Eleanor just how much that screwed with Chidi and his idea of soulmate, going off the soulmate thing and like trying to figure out, do I have feelings? Do I have what?
So I'll set this plot point up because it informs the entire series. So we've already mentioned that Eleanor realizes she really shouldn't have been there. Everybody mistakes her for another Eleanor Shellstrop, who is an environmental lawyer that spends all her time saving lives and going to third world countries and war zones and making sure that everybody is saved. And then somebody shows up who's actually the, quote, good Eleanor, or, quote, real Eleanor. And yes, so Eleanor and Chidi are meant to believe that they're soulmates, but Eleanor is not supposed to be the right Eleanor. So when the real Eleanor shows up, there's this whole mess that happens.
It's a really great form of torture.
Especially when Adam Scott's character shows up, because that kind of overlaps.
But then also for
Eleanor.
fake Eleanor. Yeah, because then she has to struggle with her conscience of this other person who is so much better than me has been having to spend this whole time in the bad place
Because of me.
because of a mistake, and because of me, because I wouldn't own up to. Yeah.
So do I go to the bad place like I'm supposed to, and then she gets to be the good place with Chidi, or do I let her go to keep being in the bad place so I can stay with Chidi? And there's that whole conundrum.
Well, and then the entire conundrum of finding out that Jason's also supposed to be in the bad place,
Yes.
trying to figure out, am I really the problem, or is he the real problem?
And yet he has the presence of mind to send her the note. That's like the one time where he's like not dumb. So now let's talk about season 2.
Whoa. Watch all this
When
last
you
2
thought
days.
it couldn't get any better, it does.
Yes.
My favorite is
I
when
agree.
Jason figures it out. Wait, we're in the bad place. Oh, this is an all-time low.
Yeah, the one time that Jason gets it first.
So I'll pepper some setup. We've gone through the twist. We realize the good place is the bad place. So Michael is determined. First of all, he has to plead to the Judge Sean,
who's not
his
really
boss.
the judge.
He's not really well, he is the judge. He gets promoted though, and so they have to go to a higher judge later. That's how they end up with Jen, which is short for hydrogen. We'll get to
I
that.
thought he was just
playing.
He's
the
playing
judge.
the judge. It's just
because he's Michael's boss.
Right.
But he's just playing that
He's just
role
playing, just
as
like
well
everybody
at the end
else
of
is
the day.
playing the role.
I guess I was confused about that. All I know is that he's really, he hides in jelly. I don't get that part.
It didn't really come up again, actually.
Let me tell you, it is gooey.
I also love when he is congratulating Michael, and Michael's like, "So you're really happy?" And he's like, "Can't you tell? I'm giggling like the birthday, or practically giggling like a birthday girl." And he's like, "Stop." That's so good.
So he has to plead and beg because Sean is his boss. His experiment was to have these 4 personalities torture each other for eternity. They figure it out. Sean's like, this is horrible, and now you're going to be tortured for eternity. He's like, no, let me try it again. And so he does, except that Eleanor figures it out within the first however much couple
30
days.
minutes.
Yeah.
super quick.
Ridiculously short.
Within
Exactly.
a day or something.
Yeah.
And so then Michael proceeds in rebooting Janet and the rest of the world
Again.
802
Now that
times.
we're telling his boss, which is a big plot.
Yeah, he and all the other demon employees keep it a secret, and then we find
Which
out.
all the demon employees are the good place residents that we've known all this
Right,
time.
and also it should be noted that quote-unquote real Eleanor, when we came in, her name is actually Vicky, and she is a bad place employee, and she ends up blackmailing Michael to take over the experiment.
Because,
He keeps failing.
Because she didn't have an important enough role.
Right.
My favorite is, as an amateur actress, is when she's like, I just don't get this new character. She asks if she can give her a limp, and just.
She's very dissatisfied with the fact that her role has been minimized to like a pizza shop owner or something.
Yeah, she's a waitress.
And stuff like that. So she's determined, like any true diva would, to enlarge her role. That's what she said. What did you think about season 2?
It was great.
Even better than season 1.
I would say the beginning few episodes are a little hard to get into compared to season 1, where I was getting right away. But after episode 2 or 3, I'm all aboard for it.
I mean,
It's
I
super
still
fun.
loved those first episodes. I
Because
just
they
didn't
were
think they had
hysterical.
the substance. I kind of wish we'd have spent a little bit more time in some of those scenarios versus just like brushing over them.
And I thought that was the funny part is when, they said like iteration 173 and then it's like, they're in like 36 hours in and somebody figures it out.
Yep.
I just thought that was part of the joke, that it's no matter
Yeah.
how many times they keep doing it, as long as they find their way to each other.
It was a little refreshing because it was definitely one of those like Groundhog's Day episodes done different. So
Yes.
I will give them that.
Yeah.
It definitely was far more entertaining than everyone else that's done that.
Yeah, just like the first reiteration that we got that they spent more time in, where Eleanor's soulmate was like the really hot mailman who just always had to go work out.
Yeah, I
I said that as an example, not to do that every time.
How many times have you said it? Every
Yeah,
time.
so it's like I loved that. I mean, he was also very nice to look at, so that helped. But then also like Tahani being paired with a guy who was super short and like really like boring and plain.
Kind of extra
Minimalist.
hipster. Yeah.
Nothing.
We don't need all this space.
Upstairs.
Yeah, and then like since Jason, his soulmate, he went back to being the Buddhist monk, and it was another guy. It was supposed to be a friendship soulmate, which was kind of fun to play on that too.
Another silent Buddhist monk who followed him everywhere.
Everywhere, like tandem bike followed him.
They did everything together.
Literally
They
tandem
had to do
bike.
everything together.
He gave Eleanor the bicycle.
Magic Wizard gave this to me. Oh my gosh, I died. That was so funny.
I don't remember who was Cheaty's soulmate at that point.
It was like the
He had to
two
choose
witches.
between
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
And he actually chose one, and then Michael came in and told him it was the other one.
Right as he was choosing, yeah.
One was more vapid than the other. One was the obvious choice, but
Yeah.
But he finally made a choice, and that horrible Michael.
And I loved how many times they kept going to Mindy St. Clair's house in those reboots too.
Yeah.
she's getting
And
bored of
she's-
it. Like, oh, you again.
She's like, okay, you're here. This is like the third, like.
Did you
the
bring
three-
any cones?
Okay.
And then she was like filming Eleanor and Cheaty in bed together, so they find out they actually have feelings for each other.
Here's all your plans.
Yeah.
That's the key, because when they end up at Mindy's place, there's what she establishes for them, and actually what messes with Eleanor's head for the rest of the season is that they do have romantic feelings, and they do end up having a sexual relationship. They only go like 16 times to the medium place, but every time it ends up like that.
The propulsiveness of the season is so refreshing too, because it didn't dwell too much on. It would have been so easy to just do 13 episodes of them rebooting
At the end of every episode kind of thing.
Yeah,
it
and
could-
I like that it was short, that it was condensed
Yeah,
to those
and-
first 3 episodes.
I did too, and it just kept going forward, and there was a new development, like 1 or 2 every episode, and you're just like, what's gonna happen? I don't know. And so I did not know any twists going into the second season. I watched it more or less live, and I was able to go along with it with what was going to happen, and then I didn't know what was going to happen, and it kept me so engaged.
Yeah, I actually complained to Gabe at one point that every end of an episode felt like it should have been the cliffhanger for the whole season.
Yeah, right.
Which I was happy because I got to figure out that cliffhanger, but it was like, God, every episode there's something that you're like, oh my God.
One of the fun parts before they went to the bad place, I'll call it the second half of the season, was the creation of Derek. By
I love
Janet
Derek.
to get back at Jason for dumping her to be with Tahani, because now Jason and Tahani were having a
Well, it's
secret-
more than that, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because Jason doesn't even remember being
He doesn't-
married to her.
No.
No, and neither does
She-
Janet. She's been rebooted so many times, but there's a latent imprint from one of those prior reboots when
Yeah.
she was married.
She's
She's
also
yeah.
the most advanced Janet.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is the most advanced Janet.
But
Yeah,
also,
so she goes and creates
what a
Derek.
great actor to play
Jason
Derek,
Mantzoukas,
too.
that's
So
brilliant.
stinking funny in everything I've seen him in.
I-
Listen to him
I
on
hate-
How Did This Get Made?
I
Anyway.
hate him and love him
Yeah.
all at the same time.
He was so annoying, and I loved it. Like, looking back on it, it's like I hated every time Derek was on screen, but it made so much sense, and it was so funny.
I loved when they finally shipped him off to Mindy St. Clair.
With the 2 bags of cocaine.
And wind chimes for a penis.
Yeah, it's like, "Why? There's wind chimes where my ding dong should be. And she's like, I can work with that.
Yeah. That was the best.
I love when they, when the squad like goes in.
Oh, and you can just hear what's happening.
You just hear the wind chimes, and you know. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, it's so funny. But like, if a younger kid were watching, they wouldn't quite get it.
That's, you know what I was thinking? I was like, Vanessa probably could have watched this with us. My daughter is 6, and I was like, she probably could have watched this show, and like all the stuff that's inappropriate would have gone totally over her head because until the one episode when she was finally able to swear when they were in the bad place.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a real joyous moment. That was that like
That was a great,
Catharsis.
swear again. Oh, I miss cursing.
You know what I love about that though is she only does it once. Then.
Yeah.
Like she never.
She doesn't go into like an
like I feel like if it was
storm.
me, I would have like then let off like
Every
every swear word I hadn't been able to say for however long.
Or
And
maybe she just wanted what she couldn't have.
maybe.
But I was also going to say that, well, we also saw Michael steal Janet from the Good Place
Yes.
Yeah.
Which isn't in the good place.
Which
It's
is
in a
not in
neutral
the
zone.
Yes.
Which, on another point, they could have gone to the Janet warehouse, which is what I was honestly expecting them to do forever
Just
and a
stay
day,
at the
and
Janet
then they went
warehouse.
to the judge.
Yeah.
Which they thought was the burrito.
For a minute.
That's
Of
just
course.
That's the end of the season. Can we go?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the bad place, like the actual bad place.
Well,
should
before
talk
we
about
Let's go.
Michael.
Let's talk about Michael first.
Yeah, we should talk about Michael
I'm just
switching
really excited
sides.
to talk about the bad place.
Oh,
Yeah, y'all are leaping all over the place.
I loved it so
There's
much.
so much to talk about.
I was actually trying to set up Derek, why Derek even came into being, because Janet, not only did she have to, she sort of subconsciously remembered her feelings, she was forced to lie, because remember,
Yes.
Tahani and Jason hooked up,
Yep, yep.
and then
Was the
they asked her to
counselor.
be
She
the
was a
couple's counselor, and then she had to tell them that she was really supportive, and that caused the whole thing to start to destroy the world.
Yeah.
So,
Earthquakes.
And then I love when he's running the diagnostics on her and like
that's one of my favorite scenes of the whole series, I
Yeah.
guess.
it's so funny.
The blood.
And the obsession with paper clips is really funny, and the fact that paper clip is one of the ways you can turn her off.
And then she turns into a marble.
She does. For all eternity.
You can even get me up high in potassium.
We talked about the medium play. Let's go back.
Reel it back in.
Reel it back in.
Rewind.
Well, Michael has to form an alliance with the humans because Vicky bribes him. She says she's going to tell Sean all about these reboots, and she better let her run, or he better let her run the whole thing. And so he does, because otherwise they'll all end up in the bad place. So he ends up at Eleanor's urging, Cheaty's ethics class.
You know, I also find it funny that Michael makes fun of the other demons for the ideas of torture they come up with, but the other ideas totally work.
You can't knock the classics, right?
like when they torture Tahani
With that party.
with the party, he was like, okay, whatever, do that. But then it totally worked. Tahani was devastated.
Or when they put all the needles into his face.
Yeah.
You could have warned me about the needles.
There's needles in my face and in my feet.
Yeah. Just walk it off. I can't.
Yeah, it was just great. And I liked that Michael was begrudgingly switching sides and slowly started to actually want to switch sides.
Yes.
I thought that was a great character development throughout the whole second season.
I gotta be honest, Eleanor or Kristen Bell in the first season was kind of my MVP, but in the second season it was totally Ted Danson.
Yes. Very
I
much
just
so.
loved that progression, and I mean, there were times when you were watching him and you're like, is he really along for this ride? Is he really trying to be better?
That trolley episode
Oh
was my
The
favorite.
trolley problem is probably one of my favorite episodes.
It's great.
And Selene kept being like, oh no, he's just messing with them. He's not really in this for like, and
It makes sense. It's hard to believe that he would help them out until like really late in the season again, where he comes out on top, and he's helping everyone out, and he wants everyone to be safe.
I would just like to say I called the trolley problem solution that Michael uses in the second to last episode.
Yeah.
I called it during the trolley episode.
Really?
Nice.
Well, I didn't say that Michael would do it, but I just said, no, the answer to this is you have to sacrifice yourself.
Yep.
Well, that is the answer.
I mean, I know.
Yeah.
But it got to that
It's that third
it got
option.
to that
Say that
spot.
out loud.
Did I not?
No.
Well, whatever.
Kelsey just
still
called
thinking.
you out.
I was there.
Dynamics.
I mean, I believe that you figured it out.
I believe that you believe that.
You believe you're smart.
No, when they talk about the trolley problem originally, Michael's sitting there drawing. He's like, so what you do is you hold a blade really far over the side and you get everyone. It's great.
Just gleeful about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's a demon.
Yeah. Well, that's racist. That's what they talk about.
He does say that.
Really what you should call
Which
it.
is hysterical.
It is. It's great.
It's so funny.
I was gonna say something. I don't know what.
I do
Watch you
love
say
the
something.
moments when they're like passing by demons who are not in their human form.
We're going
streaking!
It's the big like rock lava monster.
Yeah.
In this tiny little human body, and he's like 30 feet tall. Yeah, I love it.
That's fun.
Well, about the trolley problem in general. Now, you said that is the actual solution.
That's
the
supposedly
self-sacrifice.
It's a self-sacrifice.
Because
Yeah.
I'm only vaguely aware of I was well aware of the trolley problem as a moral quandary. I never delved into the actual interpretations of the solution. So I always figured that the trolley problem was unsolvable. There is no one right answer. It's just how you solve it or how you rationalize your choice that is part of the purpose of the trolley problem.
And that's what she's trying to explain.
Yeah,
It's
so,
that there is no right answer. There's just a better
But
answer.
how do you even sacrifice yourself in that trolley? Like go off the rails? I don't understand.
I
Crash the
tried.
trolley.
Yeah.
Well,
You crash the trolley with
Yeah.
yourself in it.
Yep.
How?
Doesn't
Derail
matter.
it.
You just
It's-
make it
I know you'd have to derail it.
So I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit more, and for all you nerds out there, you know the Kobayashi Maru?
Yes, from Star
Yep.
Trek.
It's loosely based on the trolley problem.
That's right, it is.
So it's
I-
just active,
oh,
is what
then
you're saying.
the other
Right.
interpretation.
Cheat! That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So so the other interpretation is the William Shatner / Captain Kirk interpretation.
Correct, because he's not gonna die. But it's based on that problem, so.
That makes sense.
That does make sense, yeah.
I also really enjoyed how they went to the other solutions for those problems. Or
Yeah,
not the
or
other
the
solutions,
other
but the other
variations,
variations.
yeah.
Like, you're a doctor, you could kill one person to save 5 other people. Do you do it? What? No.
All right, now go tell their families.
But there's more. There was a morality thought experiment in there, and yet it was played for comedy because it was obviously Michael just being torturing them more because that's all he knows. It's like
They
But at the same
definitely
time,
will
it
pay.
makes it accessible to everybody.
Exactly,
Where,
yeah.
I'm learning about philosophy while I'm watching The Good Place.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, and it's funny, and it makes it, I don't know, more enjoyable to learn. It's not so book and lecture. It's
No.
Are
here's
you
the
trying to
practical
advocate an educational method?
application. There is an educational.
I think so, yeah.
I did fall asleep in my philosophy class in college. I did not
See?
fall asleep while watching my
There you go.
Kelsey.
Back on the subject of Michael and his character development, the whole time you don't know if he's messing with them or if he really is on their side, right? And I think the final turning point where I decided, no, he's definitely on their side, is after the train leaves and they were all laying on the tracks, and he's like, you guys, I was so worried!
I love that. Was so cute.
It was so adorable, and I love...
He was genuinely.
I love how they're like, yeah, we got your 4 hits, and he's like, I actually left you 1,200.
So how did they get the 4 hints, Joey?
It was
through
the roast.
The roast of the humans.
Which they put on for Sean's benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were all things that sort of fit, but didn't really fit. Things that he said, and I don't remember most of them.
I don't remember most, but it
Yeah,
was,
no,
the way,
but-
and they were really uncomfortable. Then they were like, "Wait a minute."
Honey runs crying from the very last song of her party, which a hostess never does because that's when everyone pulls her up on stage and says, "You did such a good job."
I don't remember what they said either, but they were all clues to get them to take a leap of faith.
Which was another clue earlier on.
Yep.
Mhm.
But
But I
Eleanor's
figured
was
it
that
out.
she belongs bad place.
Yeah.
Like, because
Oh, yeah,
is
'cause
just
he
staying there.
And
You
Cheese
thought you
was-
belonged in the neutral place.
Or
but-
the medium place.
Yeah.
Meeting place, yeah.
Cheese was, you want to know the solution to the
Trolley
to
problem.
the trolley
Trolley
problem?
problem.
It's that, did you want yourself to be under the train because all your students wanted to be there?
Yeah, that was the kicker. But also at the end of that episode too, I loved it how when they were going to the bad place, like the last 6 people were leaving that neighborhood, how it just pixelated out. Like
Yeah,
that was
that's really
really
cool.
cool. It made me feel kind of sad. I was like, well, that's the
Yeah.
last time we're gonna see that neighborhood.
It is, isn't
Cool.
it?
But it was a cool transition. Like, okay, we're now moving on to
Something else.
the next act.
Yeah.
And you wanted to talk about the next act.
do.
So Kristen, talk about it.
The real bad place is a wonderful, magical place.
Yes.
It's Disneyland of hell.
It is. If Disney could design hell, this is what it would be. Ironically, this is on NBC and not ABC, but it works.
Maybe that was a dig.
Maybe. No, but I love it where when they get in the bad place, one of the first places that they actually go is the museum of like the first person to do this horrific thing, like clip their nails at the office and like cook salmon in the microwave and like all this stuff. And
I did.
First man to say, well, actually.
yeah.
That was
Yeah, it
brilliant.
was just all these really funny things. And so Michael's like, okay, this would be the safest place for you guys to hide because nobody ever comes in here. And whoops, there's a big party celebrating something. And so they all have to assume secret identities and fit in and
Then they have to convince Chidi to lie.
to lie. Yep. And this is where good Janet has to pretend that she's bad Janet at the party.
I would
Yes,
like to,
student.
I raised my hand. I thought it was really interesting how bad Janet couldn't pretend to be good Janet because she melted, but good Janet could pretend to be bad Janet.
Because
I
she's
thought
the
that
most
was-
advanced.
I was just
She's
gonna say,
She's so
Yeah.
advanced, and she's learned how to lie.
Yeah.
But I was still intrigued that she didn't have something happening. Like when she was lying earlier, she started malfunctioning, but
Yeah.
now she
Very
wasn't. I was
much,
waiting
yeah.
for that to play a part,
That's
and it
true.
didn't.
But it could have been too in the way that she was wording what she was saying. Because she was doing some real like double talk funky things too to make it sound really bad, but it was absolutely horrible.
Well, until it got to the end, though.
That's what I'm talking about. In the
Because
end, when
she
she
was
yeah.
totally
Bad.
personifying bad
Bad
Janet.
Janet.
Tahani being really good at being a bad person was really
Really
funny.
funny.
You don't have to torture like last week, all that. It's so great.
You know, because she worked in the hot dog department.
She stuffed hot dogs into people.
like
their
she's
mouths?
still named
Yeah.
Well, that and then convincing. I love the fact.
Wasn't he like the ultimate torturer or something?
Supposedly they thought he was the ultimate
Trevor.
torturer.
Thanks to Dak Shepard.
And then he had to actually do it, and Eleanor uses some moralism that he hadn't taught her yet.
Yeah.
Moral particularism.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
I also like the comparison between Eleanor and Michael when they were in the bad place, how she totally could have been a demon. Like she was
Very true.
as terrible as he was sometimes.
It's throughout all season 2. She's like, we're just so alike. I totally get
Like
you.
all the times where she wants to hide
Yeah.
out, she's like, oh, I should.
I'm hoping that one day they show us what Michael's life was before he became a bad place bureaucrat.
Architect.
Yes.
Architect.
Yeah, like was he
You get a
born
little
that
bit of
way?
it.
I mean, not to quote Lady Gaga, but like, is that
But you did.
I didn't mean to. But is that just how he was like manifested, or did he have like a human existence and get promoted to this
I don't
demon
think
level?
he did, only because
They
he
keep hinting at.
doesn't seem to know or understand
How?
anything about
When
humans.
he's talking about trying to get into character to be human, and he's like, okay, my arms end in these weird little sticks.
Stupid little
And he's
stick.
talking about like kissing, and he's like, you just mash your mouth holes together. That's not what they're used for.
They were used to put food in.
My favorite was when they gave him the box at the end of the last night there of like your human essential kit or whatever.
So
and
I
it's
have
all
car keys
used.
and I could lose them. Where are my car keys? They're in my pocket.
and the stress ball with the company logo.
Yeah.
And I'll find it and I'll think maybe I should throw it away, but then I'll be like, no, I'll use it.
That was one of the points where I did laugh out loud because that is so true to life.
Very
That
true.
and the playlist for the bad, like the bad people, like
their
Their
party
party,
thing.
Yeah,
and
like
it was
for the
just
speeches
she
by
hates me
Hitler and
and
Mussolini.
just those two songs they
Karaoke.
played over and over and over again.
The finale was those two songs played over each other.
She hates me and Grandma got run over.
Yeah, the Nixon tapes were that was one of their karaoke.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, the Nixon tapes.
Right in the time that one of her partners was doing that opera thing, and she's like, only in the bad place would they ever do this.
Yeah, I think the party in the bad place episode was one of my favorites of season 2, just because it was so ridiculous.
So they end up in the bad place because they're trying to get to
The judge, in the neutral zone.
who's played by
Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph.
Absolutely brilliant, Maya.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we just backtrack for like 2 seconds to talk about drunk Janet?
Yes. Oh yes, Kelsey, please devote some quality
I
minutes to
don't know
Janet.
really what there is to say other than it was hilarious. Like, the fact that she gets drunk on magnets.
Yeah.
And then when she's like, I'm supposed to be drunk on magnets, but I'm fine.
I like when Michael tricks Vicky and he's like, something, Vicky, something. And that's exactly what he said. Like,
I know that, and the next morning when she wakes up, she's like, oh, guys, I've just been drunk on magnets, and I can hear everything. The whole universe.
Yeah.
Should you talk quiet?
Yeah. Anyways, so now, we can. I need a moment. It's gonna be sad if we miss drunk Janet.
It's fun.
But they had to get the teleportation accessible pins from
Right.
Badges, yeah, to get through the portal.
To get through the portal to get to the neutral zone.
And then there wasn't enough.
And there wasn't enough, and so Michael sacrificed himself so
Solve the
Eleanor,
trolley problem.
yeah, so Eleanor could go through and be with everybody else to get to the good place.
Yes. And so they get there, and the whole purpose of it is to try to convince Judge Jen to give them a pass so that they're all allowed into the real good place. And she gives them tests to measure their personal growth. Does everyone remember those?
Yes,
Yes.
I do. I have problems with those.
Why?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great story bit, and it was wonderful for the series, but it's obvious to me that those tests were awful for them. Like, it was almost like there was no way they could to pass them. They have made moral progress, and these tests are not good enough
But
to
no,
test their
the-
progress.
Eleanor
the
passes
Individually,
Right,
but-
and the test was supposed to be like going against their greatest flaw. Like Tahani walking through the hallway of people saying bad things about her, not going into the rooms.
Yeah.
Because she just, her thing is she should not care.
Yeah, she's
You
too
know.
self-conscious.
She's
Jason
too
being too impulsive, so
well, and
he-
Jason also loving the Jackson Jaguars so much. That was,
Yeah.
you have to play against them, or he could have chosen not to play, period.
It never occurred to him,
It never
which
and
is very
Chidi
true.
just had to choose between two
One
tasks.
It took him 80 minutes or something
Within
like that.
like a reasonable time period.
Right.
Apparently.
But Tahani gave in and went and talked to her parents, but then,
But she
after-
goes past everyone else.
because her parents are the biggest issue.
Her
because
parents
she
are
never,
the seat of her inferiority
because she
complex.
never measured up to her sister in her parents'
But
eyes.
she
But then she also is like, okay, yeah,
But then-
she
yeah.
also gets to the point where she does go in there
Exactly.
because-
So she essentially.
but she like overcomes it.
Yeah.
By
So
leaving, like right
Yeah.
away.
and by just accepting that they're not going to ever be satisfied with her, and she becomes okay with that. So
that is progress, it seems.
But
Yes.
she still failed in the fact that she went into the room, even though it had a positive.
Like, she
outcome.
even told her how to pass it. She's
Yeah,
like,
true.
you just
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
walk
okay, but in
through.
all fairness, Judge Jen said that initially they weren't even, like, she eventually tells Kristen Bell's character, Eleanor, that they were never going to pass anyway. Like, these were literally just to figure out where they would be going in the bad place.
Yep.
Oh, I missed that.
no, they tell her that in the fake Cheaty
Yep, that's
Yeah.
right.
because
Oh,
that
right.
is part of their test.
Fake
Part of
Eleanor.
Eleanor's test.
Part of Eleanor's test, which Eleanor passes. So the deal
the only
is,
one that
she's
does
the only
pass.
one. So the deal is, all 4 of them have to pass, and they all can ascend. But if any one of them fails, they all
That's
have to
right.
stay in the bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Eleanor passes, but
And
then she
lies.
lies later and says she doesn't. But I think the reason the personal growth, this very thing you're bringing up, is what sparks Michael to then tell the judge, this system is flawed. Because there's clearly improvement that all of them have made, including Tahani. And so then we get another twist.
I think brilliant twist.
Which is?
The fact that they all come back to life, possibly.
Yeah,
and and live on after they are saved from their eventual death, and they are monitored for how they will take this newfound life with however they. I don't know how to describe it, but they're just the fact that
they have the knowledge of the personal growth. They don't remember how they got it, but Eleanor starts becoming a better person, and she, at the very end of the episode, she goes to Australia and she walks into Chidi's office. Yeah. And
after she started to backslide.
She started to backslide after 6 months because it was too hard.
I mean,
Michael did cheat, but how did he cheat? Michael.
By being a bartender, just like dancing on Cheers.
That was a Cheers joke, young people.
And I stood up and cheered.
I was just like,
no, I'm only giving you half the points.
Okay.
So good. That was such a fun little tongue-in-cheek moment,
and he was playing it just like Sam.
He totally was. It was amazing.
I've never watched Cheers.
I haven't either.
I recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Amazing. Yep. It's amazing.
So what did we think about this ending?
I
loved the ending.
Very intriguing.
Loved the fact that Michael and Janet sit there and say, you know what the problem is they're not with each other. That they need each other to be better. So I'm really
doing a ding 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 noise in my head right now.
I'm really intrigued to see how they bring Tahani and Jason into this mix later so that they can all become better.
That's clearly going to be the first
obviously
few
I
episodes.
see how Chidi and Eleanor, but how do you bring the other two in?
But I also want to see how the other three didn't die.
Agreed.
That's going to be they're
Because-
going
Yeah,
to
'cause they
deal
have-
with that in
they
the first
didn't
couple
do that.
episodes.
Yeah,
I'm sure
well,
of
and
it.
because the whole idea, the whole play on words was that they needed a push in the right direction when he pushed Eleanor out of the way of the cards. She had the near-death experience. So it'll be interesting to see that in the seasons to come. But I also, I don't want to jump too far.
You're fine.
Ask
We're at
what
that
anyone
place.
wants to talk about. Where do you guys think Michael is going to end up? And Janet?
I really want them to be in it.
Well, see,
Well,
Gabe and I were talking
Janet's
about
a good
this.
Janet, so
Janet, but
She's
Janet's
not
a different
anymore,
Janet.
because she's no longer. She can now lie. She can do all these other things. So Joey and I were talking, saying maybe Janet's evolved past good Janet somewhere else.
And maybe that
More
Michael is
relativistic
eventually
Janet.
going to become the new judge, and Janet will be his assistant. I think would be a cool. theory.
I would like
Intriguing.
them to be like an actual medium place.
Yeah.
Not the one that's there,
Not with
but
Wendy.
like like the concept kind of purgatory where someone who hasn't been completely bad can still become better here. Like someone, like a place where you can eventually work your way up to the good place.
Sure.
Or work your way down, maybe.
Or
Or
maybe,
work your way down.
yes,
or
you have to.
maybe they haven't come back to life, and that's exactly what they're doing, is living through purgatory.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah. Maybe they haven't
I
actually.
like that idea.
That did occur to me is that they're actually not still alive. They're just going through a elaborate.
A simulation.
Because he also said it wouldn't affect anyone else, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Why not? It's only 4 people."
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think they are living through a purgatory. Now that you kind of brought that idea to life, that makes perfect sense.
Also-
And I think
That
of
this is
purgatory
their
just being
medium.
a
I mean, if they're
secondary life.
patterning it after Lost, Epiphany, then that might be what we're watching.
Yeah, this is the medium
Right.
place.
But also that would
This
be
is
kind of
the place,
disappointing because the Lost people said this isn't purgatory, and then basically it was. So,
I think we're skipping over a really important part of season 2, and that's the Molotov scene.
yes,
That might have been the
Kelsey's in
funniest-
it.
That might have been the funniest thing that happened that entire season, in my opinion. He was just ready. I'm the Molotov guy. I'm the Molotov guy. What do we do? Molotov, Jason! Just tosses it. They get away because of it.
That's
It was
the bad place party.
Yeah, that's at the bad place party. And
That line that he had earlier where he's like, or we could just throw a Molotov cocktail, and they're like, no, what? No, he's like, well, whenever I have a problem and I throw one, I find out that immediately that problem ends and I have a new one.
But what's ironic is that in order to distract everybody so they can get to the portal, it's Janet that throws the Molotov cocktail.
no, it's not. Jason throws it.
What?
Janet throws the Molotov cocktail.
No, because
Jason
At the
jumps
party
and
or
yells his own
you
name
mean,
and
like-
tosses
At
it.
the party.
Yeah.
Jason's with the group that's trying to get to the portal.
no, he throws it and
That's-
then they
then
run.
run away to the
Yeah.
portal.
I'm gonna go back and watch that. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was her because
Janet
I
wasn't
thought
at
that
the
was
party.
Janet was trying to get them out. And
Janet was posing as Bad Janet. Bad Janet was at the party, and I thought she threw the Molotov cocktail because of her feelings for Jason.
No, because they say
I'm gonna have to go back.
they
and
I'm
say
gonna have to go back
they
too.
say how are we gonna get out of this? And Jason's like, I got this, and it shows him quickly assemble a Molotov cocktail, jump up and throw it, and yell his own name. I think.
Jason!
Well, he doesn't yell his name. He yells the name of the
Jaguar or the
guy that
Oh, the
he's-
Jaguar
yeah.
quarterback player.
Yeah, the one that he's pretending that.
I'm
that
gonna
took
watch
his
that
name
episode.
inspiration.
yeah.
Because why that would land in my brain just so, I don't know. Maybe that's what I wanted to happen, but I don't.
Is the dress gold or blue?
No.
It was
No, let's not
it
do
was
that.
one of the
Yeah.
few times in the show where Jason actually was useful.
Yeah, I think the same thing.
No,
that
I
was
think
that was
this
his
is the time
moment.
he tried to be useful and was. He's been useful before, but never on purpose.
That's true.
It's like with the magic wizard bracelet. Please, magic wizard bracelet. Get me out of this situation somehow.
I want to talk about how Jason had a tragic life.
Yeah.
Like, and people kind of keep shutting him down and not letting him talk about it. But the whole time, yeah, you're just thinking he's just this dumb guy, but there's a reason he ended up the way he is.
Yeah, like what was his school was like.
It was
A bunch of
it was
tugboats tied together in a junkyard.
you know?
Yeah.
It was the, what do you call it? Like I think he called it like the Leonard Skinner School.
Yes, that's what it was.
In my head, it's really just like the Oliver Twist. School.
Exactly.
No, I started liking Jason more because you got to see, like, it was really quick, and one of the reasons I love The Good Place so much is because it does do really quick humor. It's a lot thrown at you, and you need to be paying attention. Everything with Jason is he's quick, random, and then he's off camera again. And every time you see him, he does say something about his past in season 2, it feels like, and it's great to see that character develop just like everyone else.
Anything else you want to say about season 2?
I cannot wait to see season 3.
Yeah, true story.
So this show was created by Michael Schur. You probably saw him as Mose Schrute on The Office, but he is best known for co-creating Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Would you or have you watched any of these shows? Will you watch either of them as a result of watching The Good Place?
I've wanted to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine for ages.
Yeah, me
Oh
too.
my
And I
god, it's
just
so
haven't-
good.
I had.
It's so good.
I just haven't.
What are
gotten
you
a
doing
chance.
with your life?
It's on Netflix. If it was on Netflix, I'd watch it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I love Parks and Rec. I've
Yeah.
watched
Yep,
that 2 or 3 times through
Yeah.
now, and it's still funny. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I tried to watch it, couldn't quite get into it, so maybe I'll give it another chance when it gets on Netflix or if it's available from the beginning, like on Hulu or something. But Parks and Rec, love it, recommend it.
Yes.
Definitely. I don't know who wrote this show, but The Good Place, reminded me a lot of a show that was on Netflix that was canceled called Better Off Ted.
Oh yes!
Yes.
I love Better Off Ted.
The humor is so similar in it.
I agree.
When I was watching The Good Place, I thought of that show many times just because of how quick the humor was and how I felt like it was a lot smarter than just the baseline comedy in it.
I agree with that comparison. I think it's pretty
think it's
apt. It's got the satire. Now, Better Off Ted was a lot more cynical, I think, as a general rule,
Yes.
probably because of Portia de Rossi's character. I highly recommend it. It's a cult show. It was only 2 seasons, I
Yeah.
think. And it's somewhere. If it's not on Netflix, it's somewhere. I'm pretty sure of it.
I know it was back on Netflix for a while. Like it was
It's
off,
one of
then
those,
went
like,
back on.
it keeps reappearing every so often.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing I really like about The Good Place is that they are letting the writers and the creators do a shorter season. Because I think if it were a full like 22 to 26 episode season, I don't think it would be as good. Like I like that they have this limited amount of episodes and
Oh, yeah,
they're
that's
making
true.
it work. Like they're pulling more of like the Netflix and Hulu original series, and why those are so good is because they give them a shorter time frame to make the most of every minute. And I think it works perfectly for The Good Place. I don't want it to be any longer than 13 episodes a season, even though I want it to be. I don't want it to be. 'Cause it's so good.
It doesn't need to be.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be.
I think the same thing with the show itself, where they're only like 20 minutes each time. That's much, it's just the whole show is very quick and easy to watch, and it makes it great. Having those quick episodes, having quick seasons, it's much better than having it run on longer than it needs to.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, like, half the problem with, like, syndicated TV is the fact that they pull it out and they make everything take longer, and, like, if we get everything we want done in the first so many episodes, what are we going to do with the rest?
Yeah.
And they don't fully plan. Like, that's why the first 13 episodes of Glee were great, and then everything else was trash.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And we did a Glee podcast.
We did.
Please listen to that. Michael was on it. Netflix distributes The Good Place internationally. So I think part of the reason why that was the case, or maybe just the perfect marriage of it, was the fact that NBC does do a shorter season for this show. But I would agree with all of the comments. I think that it benefits from a shorter season. I don't know how they could make it longer and have it still be good. And I think it contributes so well to the pacing, which is so super consistent. So, any other thoughts on The Good Place compared to other TV shows, fantasy shows, comedies?
I wouldn't compare it to most shows, but I do like how the show talks about some really serious topics while keeping it lighthearted.
Yes.
There's definitely points in that show where you're like, wow, this is kind of intense. Like, these are really intense topics, but keeps it lighthearted. It's great. Like, I enjoy that a lot.
Talking about comparisons, this isn't a comparison at all. One of my favorite things is when they get into the train station in the bad place, there's a poster for Pirates of the Caribbean 6.
Yeah.
So good. That was a great bit.
There's lots of little Easter eggs like that.
They do such a good job. Their whole production design, whoever's on that production design team who puts in those Easter eggs, bravo, my friend. That's the
Deserve a
thing.
raise.
Seriously, but I think that also adds to the rewatchability because then you catch those little nods, on your second or third time through.
It's definitely a freeze frame show.
They need Emmys.
It's also
Yeah.
nice that, going back to the idea of it being shorter season, shorter episodes, there's no filler episodes.
Exactly.
Which is so nice.
So good.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
there's
very
been plenty of filler episodes in other shows that I've loved and enjoyed, but it's so nice to not have that in this show.
Yeah, like every episode advances the plot in some way.
Yeah, like what Joey was saying earlier, is that every episode ends on almost a cliffhanger. That it's really important detail just gets emerged at the very end. So I agree. There's no filler, so it makes it again really easy to quickly watch and keep watching it.
Easy to recommend to other people.
Brilliant segue,
Yes,
Joey.
very good, Joey.
Are you going to keep watching?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
unanimous. And would you recommend The Good Place to others? Why or why not?
Yes.
Definitely, yes.
I have recommended it to others, not just Kylie, which happened repeatedly, but I recommended it to a lot of friends. I'm like, just watch it. It's hard to explain, but just watch it. And the ones that I've recommended it to, they've all loved it.
It's mostly hard to explain because you want to tell them the twist. You're like I was explaining it to a coworker recently, and he was like, "Oh yeah, what's it about?" And I almost right off the bat said, "Yeah, it's about these people that
think
are in
they're
heaven, but they're not actually in heaven." And I was like,
You can't say
well, I didn't say it. I didn't
Good.
spoil
And
it.
it's so hard because season 2 is totally different.
Yes.
So it's like, season 1 is about this. Like you have to almost approach it that way. And then you just have to keep watching because
I always say it's about somebody being in the good place, quote unquote heaven,
who's not
supposed to be there.
That's the safest way to describe it, and it
Very true.
kind of piques your interest a little bit.
Yeah.
I would recommend it because, and I'm going to sound like an intellectual twerp here, but I would say that the thing that you might get out of it that you won't get out of any other TV show, at least on network TV, as a comedy, is that it's watch it if you want a TV show that's going to challenge you mentally, and it's a sitcom, and it's hilariously funny, and you actually will laugh at just about everything that's happening every 5 seconds, because that's what I do.
genuinely laugh too.
Yeah, exactly.
Rarely were there jokes said on the show that I was like, that was kind of funny. It was usually like, that's hilarious.
There's definitely moments in that show where you have to pause it, laugh, and then continue watching.
Right.
I've recommended this show. I have continued. There's people in this room know that I recommended this show too. I'm like, you're not watching this? This is like your show. Watch it. We recommend it. It's going to be a glowing review when we post this podcast episode. Anything else you want to say about The Good Place seasons 1 and 2? Or what you might want to see in season 3, since we hedged that as well.
Something Joey and I have talked about a lot is that in season 2, Michael realizes he keeps failing. In the very beginning, he keeps failing, keeps having to restart. And we talked about it, it's because they're all together still. They all keep seeing each other. And we talked about how Janet is really important in that. She's the only one that's actually somewhat from the good place. She's really important to keep all these characters tied together, help each other out the whole time. And we're pretty sure that's why at least I am, I'm pretty sure why Michael's plan failed is because Janet was there. And I think they hint towards it a little bit in the show, and I hope that we see a little bit of like Michael, again, seeing his failures and everything, and how he's reacting to it.
Yeah, because most of the time and most of the failures that you saw, Janet was always a part of it. She was always a part of somebody figuring something out, except for the one time when
Justin.
Jason figures out,
Jason,
but
yeah.
even before that, when it lasted like 12 seconds.
The butt dial reboot.
No, when she walks into the
Oh
office,
yeah,
it's like,
because
did
she
you say this
overhears.
isn't the
Yeah,
good
that's
place?
hilarious. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think Janet had a big role in the demise of Michael's plan.
Yep.
That's an intriguing theory. I'm for it.
Well,
I like
being
that.
as she's with Michael in the counting room, whatever you want to call it.
The accounting part of the bad place where they're all doing their jobs and stuff. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if while they're on Earth or pseudo-Earth or wherever they're at, if because Janet's not with them, that would...
That's what I'm looking forward to seeing in season 3, because we're seeing them have to be pushed together to do good. So I'm wondering, without Janet being there and without Michael being there, if we'll still see all of the good things happen, or because there's only the 4 of them, if we'll see them torture themselves in real life.
And if it's still imperfect, which kind of goes along with the idea of all 6 of them need to be together as soul cluster.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to be apart for too long in the beginning of season 3.
Oh, probably
because
not.
already setting it up where Eleanor has found Chidi. I think it's just going to be a quick, maybe an episode or 2.
Where you get to
all
know
together.
Tahani, you
Yeah.
get to know what Tahani's been doing,
We'll see the
and
other
Chidi and
backstories.
Jason.
How Jason didn't die in a safe somehow.
Yeah, we will see how they didn't die, and then we'll see them come together relatively.
Yeah, I think
Because
so as
we
well.
breezed through Eleanor's life pretty quickly and how she
Yeah.
got to Chidi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll probably be like that ending point. So we'll see Chidi up until Eleanor walks in, and then we'll see Jason, and who knows, maybe Jason and Tahani are on campus too, and we just don't know that they're there yet.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good chance that they could also be just about ready to walk in.
Yeah.
That was a great episode, by the way. I love that. It was a very heartfelt episode watching Eleanor go through, try and be good, pretty much succeed at it, and then have a moral falling out.
And then it just
And get
Because
back.
of different very
And then
circumstances.
see her
Spiraling,
Facebook
yeah.
post from a year ago, which always comes back to bite you.
Right.
Watch what you do on social media.
Going back to, I think I said this in the very beginning of the podcast, I don't know and I don't have a lot of faith in how many more seasons they can make of this without it getting real old real fast.
A constant rebooting?
Or without
think they
pulling a
have an
house
endpoint.
and changing the whole cast.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
sure,
I think they
I
have
think they have an endpoint in mind. I think,
Like House.
obviously we'll see in the next season what the next season holds, but in my mind so far I can't think past this being the last season, season 3.
Yep.
I could see season 4.
I could see a 4.
If this is the medium place, is season 3, then I think season 4 will have to be the good place or them in the bad place. I think that's kind of the next logical step depending on where this season goes.
Yeah, if they do end up in the good place, I don't see there being a whole season in the good place.
And relating it to another show.
I'm not sure we'll ever see it, but yeah.
No.
That's what I mean, like,
Relating to another show like Supernatural, we figure out that the angels aren't that great in Supernatural, that they're kind of shady. And I think when we go to the good place eventually, if we do in the show, we'll see the same thing. that a lot of this show is talking about being morally gray, that there's no good and bad, that there's just a lot of shady things, and sometimes you're good, sometimes you're not.
It'll be interesting, and also going back to what Gabe said way earlier, who's in the good place? There's so many little things that make people end up in the bad place, apparently, like flossing your teeth at work, which gross, but
but the negative points of it, yeah.
Yeah, who could have possibly ended up in the good place? Is there anyone in the good place?
Well, also, you know, they're bad place people, so are they even telling the truth?
Yeah,
exactly.
Or do they
Who knows
know
if that's right?
Like, this could be the only thing, because we see that Michael says he's not a demon. Like, he says that, so maybe he's just, like, this is all he knows, is that he's not a demon, he's this guy that's just trying to make it in his work. And we don't see any angels or any good people. We've seen neutral and we've seen bad. So maybe there aren't any good people.
And we also see when he steals the good Janet that there's no one obstructing him at all. It's not guarded at all.
Because they're good.
So is there even really a good place?
They just trust everyone. You can just take whatever you want.
Because a good Janet exists, I believe there is a good place.
I'm with that,
You
yeah.
can't have the bad place without the good place, because then what would the bad place actually mean? There is a good place in the concept of the show.
Yes.
We just haven't seen it yet.
I would only say that with all the questions you're raising, I don't see how you can see a limit on the seasons.
That's true.
They also go through a lot, though, in one season. Like, in one season, they'll explain a lot really quickly.
That's true.
So,
It goes quickly,
I don't know.
yes.
I
The pace
definitely,
is
I
fast.
think 4 is possible. I think 3 is likely, though. Like, it'd be good to end on a 3rd and then possibly see a 4th.
But I guess we'll see.
And on that note, I would like to thank Michael, Kristen, Gabe, Joey, Selene, and Kelsey for joining us for our inaugural Good Place podcast panel. And because I thanked them and I said that, I now have to say this. CPU was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Cheap Couch Potato, and hails from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play. Give us stars, comments, reviews, let us know how we're doing, what you like, what you don't, what we should keep, what we should toss. You know how these things work. If you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or by Facebook and Twitter, though of course we have new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. We have several more new episodes coming down the pike, we always do. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what we cover, we're everywhere. We top Google searches under our name. It's an accomplishment. Subscribe to our website, our channels, our social media. Stay up on new events and episodes. Now, until the next time, if you want to catch up on The Good Place, only Season 1 is legally available in its entirety on Netflix. Season 2, the last 5 episodes, are at Hulu and NBC's website, but probably they'll release Season 2 to Netflix, who we say their name way too much, probably shortly in advance of the premiere of Season 3. I think that's when Season 1 came out. So if you want to catch up, that's when you can do it. Our Good Place panel will next reconvene following the show's 3rd season finale, which most likely will air next winter or spring, a year from now. So until next time, so far away, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned. Bye.